Hey, you're listening to the Riverdale podcast. This is episode number 212. My name is Jonathan. Welcome to lovely Riverdale, USA. Hey folks, and welcome to the Riverdale podcast. This is an Archie Comics fan podcast. We update every Saturday morning, and every week we break things up 4 ways. First up this week is the book of the week. That's the comic book I read this week. Sometimes it's a new comic book, sometimes it's an old comic book, but it's always an Archie comic book. We'll move then to the news of the week. That's what happened in the world of Archie in the week since our last podcast. Then on to new releases. That's what came out this past Wednesday. Will be coming up this coming Wednesday from Archie. And we're going to wrap up today looking at the June solicitations. I want to remind everybody that there are a few great ways to help out the show. One of those ways is to tell a friend who loves Archie Comics that you love this show. If there's someone who's into Archie Comics, they might love this show. You can tell them all about it, and they can come and listen, and that would be awesome. You can also write an iTunes review. A great way to help out any podcast you're into is to write an iTunes review. If you write one for this show, I will share it here on the show. The other great way you can help out is to head over to patreon.com/Riverdale podcast. I've set up a Patreon account where you can go and make a monthly donation at an amount of your choosing. If you give $3 a month or more, you'll get a rad pin and a little package from me and a note from me. One such person who will be getting that package is Aaron. Aaron is our newest Patreon supporter. Aaron, thank you so much for donating to the show. Over at patreon.com/Riverdale podcast, there are also a few goals we're working towards in terms of exclusive video content that's going to be available only to Patreon subscribers. So head over there. You can make a donation of as little as $1 a month. Check it out. Thanks for considering that. Let's get into the book of the week. All right, folks, this week's book of the week is Betty and Veronica Jumbo Comics Digest number 242. This is a jumbo issue. This is 250 pages of Betty and Veronica comics. We got a cover here, I believe, by Dan Parent. Yes, Dan Parent, Bob Smith, and Tito Pena. With Archie and Betty and Veronica. Betty and Veronica are sniffing some beautiful flowers. I don't know how things are looking in your part of the world, but we're not blooming flowers up here in Portland, Maine just yet. Jumping in to our lead story, we're continuing the series of the many loves of Archie Andrews. It occurred to me as I was reading this that we're pretty divorced now from the introduction of the story, which was a storyline in which Archie's nominated for the Best Boyfriend of the Year award or something. That was back in our first chapter of this series in October, I believe. So I'm not sure if that's going to bookend. Maybe I'd have to go back and read that to see whether I was mistaken that we were going to follow that narrative of him being nominated for this. But in any event, we're getting these great stories sort of one by one, looking at all of the different ladies of Riverdale, I guess. And in this particular issue, we are in the home of Ginger Lopez. I'm not sure if we necessarily learn a lot about Ginger, but we learn a lot about Ginger's cat, Cinnamon. Now, I'm not going to get too much into the plot of this story or the events that happen in it. I love the fact that Dan Parent, who both penciled and wrote this story with Rich Kozlowski inks, Glenn Whitmore colors, and Jack Morelli letters. Dan Parent, writing and drawing this story, made the cat not necessarily strangely anthropomorphic, but more anthropomorphic than most animals that we run into in the Archie universe. Initially, when we see the cat, there are a few clues of this. It's not feeling well. So the cat is sort of like sitting upright with its head on a pillow and a blanket over it, looking very, very human-like, at least in its position. It looks very much like a cat physically. And then we find that the cat has thought balloons, not unlike Hot Dog does, or a Bingo Wilkins dog, Rebel, also communicates in thought balloons. But as the story progresses, the cat is sort of like walking on its hind legs and things like that. There's something very charming about that I liked a lot. I felt like Dan Parent was kind of breaking the rules of the Archie universe, and I like that he did that. There's also a moment in here where we think that something kind of gruesome happened, and it didn't. I thought that was a good kind of scary moment. But all in all, I've been enjoying these stories. I like the Sabrina one. I like we had one around Christmas time. That was great. Enjoying these stories in general. Looking forward to. I don't think we've gotten a Valerie one yet. Looking forward to Valerie. I assume she's going to be in there. My understanding is this is a 10-part series going a full year of these digest stories. So looking forward to that. Jumping ahead a little bit to some Sabrina stories. This is a part of Sabrina's history that's a little bit of a blind spot for me, so I'm excited to get in here and read these stories that were drawn by Holly G. Holly G was and now, we can look back and see of historical significance in the time that she spent working on Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Again, as I said, this is an era I'm looking into. I don't know the exact years, but I know there was overlap. This was late 90s into the early 2000s, so there's overlap with the television show. And when you read the stories from this era, that's evident by the appearance of Sabrina's aunts, who are, I don't know if they're de-aged necessarily, but they present very differently than they did in the classic Sabrina comic books. Less like sort of stereotypic witches and more like regular folks. I don't know that they necessarily even look like the characters, or rather the women who portrayed them in the TV show, but they look decidedly different than they did originally and classically in like the Sabrina book in the 70s. But I really, really like these stories. We got 3 or 4 of them in here. And, the common denominator is Holly G's pencils, which look fantastic, that really have that. They have a classic, like, on-model Archie kind of feel. But at the same time, they look very of the era. They look very... I guess the clothes of the era look great. In this first story, which is entitled A Haunting We Will Go. Let me enunciate that a little better. I find Sabrina to be wearing something that, like, JoJo, the pop singer of that era, or like, I don't know, maybe on a bad day, Jennifer Lopez would be wearing this sort of like tracksuity kind of outfit. So very modern for that era, but also some good cartooning here. I feel like Holly G is underappreciated for sure, but also in this pocket of time that's like not quite, people aren't quite nostalgic for it yet. There isn't quite like that generation of folks that came up reading this that are coming back to it and enjoying it. I feel like maybe in another 5 years' time, people will be really, really talking about Holly G's contributions to the Sabrina comics. But I guess I'm not going to wait for that. These are comics I want to catch up with, and I would love to catch up with Holly G at some point and discuss her time working for Archie. In this particular story, A Haunting We Will Go, there's an event that ties it very, very sharply and precisely to the late 90s, which is the appearance of 2 ghosts that look very much like Jay and Silent Bob from the Kevin Smith movies of that era. They don't necessarily behave like them, but they are clearly modeled after them. That is... It's fantastic. I always say, I will say again and again, the best Archie Comics and the best thing about Archie Comics is when they directly reflect the era in which they were created. And this places it in a time and a place. And I really appreciate that. There's a great one-panel gag, Zelda in Hold the Phone. I don't have a writing credit on this particular story. This is pretty obviously Holly G artwork. And in this opening panel that gives you the title of the one, so a one-page gag, and below the title is a little chibi version, a little like super deformed, little micro version of Zelda, giving a raspberry, sort of sticking her tongue out at a telephone. And the story in this goes that she's being called by telemarketers, and she plays a pretty nasty, witchy prank on that telemarketer. But I love this kind of anime influence. I know that we've seen, obviously, manga versions of Sabrina. I don't know if we... And I'm sure that actually we have seen manga versions of the Riverdale kids, but I don't know if we've ever seen them sort of drawn in that super deformed way. So it's neat to see that within this comic. We also got a story in which Salem wanted his own room and threw a little party when he got it. And then we have Sabrina dealing with the classic Archie Comics problem in a story called Double Bubble Boy Trouble, in which Sabrina makes 2 dates for the same night. And of course she has a little better skill set, a little wider skill set than Mr. Andrews. So she's able to use some sort of witch magic to try to pull this off. But what goes on in this story is a sort of parallel date going on between Sabrina and Harvey and Sabrina and Shinji. And Shinji is a character that was created, I believe, by Holly G, or in that era in which Holly G was drawing the Sabrina comics, and that's a character that carried on into Tanya Del Rio's run with the manga-style Sabrina. And as I read these, there are some really nice panels in this particular story, especially the last couple. Shinji is Sabrina's love interest, if you will, from her witch school. Within these books, she is going to regular high school and witch school and trying to balance that life, which is a great way to play that character. That's how they played her in the most recent animated series as well, from a couple years back. I think it's an interesting take with her character. I like it a lot. And it does lend itself to this sort of anime influences, the sort of shoujo archetype that brings about, choosing between two boys. But in these last couple panels especially, Shinji has his hair down. He's got blue hair. There's a sort of manga influence in his facial structure and stuff, while Sabrina still really maintains that Archie house style in terms of how she looks, and there's a good juxtaposition there. I like it a lot, especially the final panel of this story, in which Shinji's sort of looking into Sabrina's eyes, and Sabrina looks very surprised and very troubled that she's going to have to choose between these two boys. I enjoyed these Sabrina stories quite a bit. That was my favorite part of this digest for sure. I do want to skip to changing gears quite a bit, which is one of the great things about digest, is the not just the number of stories and the number of pages, but the sort of wide breadth of content that you get in here. Of course, we've got classic stories from the Archie Vault. And where is my page? There it is. All right. Betty and Veronica in The Voice Is Yet to Come. I don't even know if that's a pun. I guess it's supposed to be a pun on the best is yet to come, the voice is yet to come. It, it doesn't quite work. Our credits box here just tells us that Harry Lucy did the art, which is good to know. But I probably could have figured that out. It's beautiful, beautiful art. And here on this first page, there's a lovely, lovely thing happening, which is that the... I guess you could look at it one of two ways. Either the bar at Pop's that Betty is leaning her elbows on while she drinks a malted shake. Either that bar has become the panel border for the next panel, or she's leaning on the panel border of the next panel down below. But it's a really nice composition. I don't know if I'm explaining it as well as I could, but the furniture, the set pieces, and the structure of the page have sort of become one. It's really, really cool. And I love these 50s stories because of the furniture and the set pieces. The stool that Betty's sitting on, the sort of soda jerks in the background. Really, really great. And the fashion is really on point. I really, really love it. And in this story, we find that Veronica has been ignoring everybody. People run up and they talk to her, and she just gives them the cold shoulder. And Archie and Reggie figure she's got to be seeing somebody else. She's got to be mad at them or something. She's blowing them off. So they decide that they've got to stake out her house and figure out what's going on. And at some point, Archie decides he's going to climb up in this tree. He's going to see if he can get a better look over the fences of Lodge Manor. Of course, Lodge Manor is fenced in from all sides. So he climbs up on this tree. And then Reggie climbs up on this tree. And then the tree begins to bend, and we get some fantastic physical comedy, as only Harry Lucy can do. As we see this tree bend nearly in half and then just launch Archie not only over the wall, but straight into the pool at Lodge Manor. Fantastic. I love these classic 50s stories. I love those Sabrina stories. I love that we're getting these new adventures still of the many loves of Archie Andrews. Moving on through the book, there's little Archie stories. There's a ton of Stan Goldberg, Betty stories in here. Lots and lots of great stuff. I guess I'll wrap it up there. But that is it. There it is. Our book of the week, Betty and Veronica Comics Jumbo Digest number 242. All right, folks, the news of the week. I was long-winded in that last segment. Thanks for hanging with me. News of the week. Newsarama got us a rundown of the new Riverdale panel from C2E2, the Chicago Comics and Entertainment Expo. There was a panel there hosted by Heath Corson, starring, if you will, featuring, I guess is the common nomenclature, Mark Wade and Veronica Fish. And you can head over there. There was a sort of a almost like a live tweet kind of thing, a rundown of things that were said as they said them, and you can scroll through and read that. It's a pretty awkward way to read anything, and it took a while for me to load. I don't know whether it's a strange way to get information, but if you head over to Newsarama, search for Archie C2E2, you'll find some stuff there, and there's a few pieces of information that I found of note. Could be if you read it, you'll catch something different, or something different will catch your eye. But a few of the things that were said that particularly interested me was a script change. Apparently, there was a part of the storyline that was written, and I inferred from this that it had partially been drawn, that was switched up by Archie Editorial, which was Reggie attempting to join the army, attempting to get a fake ID and join the army. So I'm not sure exactly why that was changed, or whether that was out of like a reverence to special forces, or whether that was a concern about showing fake IDs, or I'm not sure exactly what that is, but I thought that was an interesting point. There's also a moment where they mention that we may very well see the Archies, the band, happen within the pages of this book, which I'm really, really excited about. Also, Mark Waid mentioned that he pushed really hard for a crossover, and we all know how much Archie Comics loves their crossovers. Mark Waid pushed hard for a crossover between Archie and Batman 66. For anybody who doesn't know, I mean, Batman 66 was the most recent, was a very recent comic series that just wrapped up. That was a riff on the old Adam West Batman series from 1966. I think that could have been cool. I'm not sold on it. I mean, I would have read it. I probably would have enjoyed it. I don't necessarily know if it's the best idea, but I mean, if Mark Waid wrote it, it would be amazing. But apparently that was shot down. Would have been cool though. So yeah, those were my highlights of the highlights from C2E2 in the new Riverdale panel. In other news this week, there's a groupies campaign. This is something that I was unfamiliar with. It seems very much like the Humble Bundle concept. If you head over and make a donation, you can get a number of digital books. They've got them in groupings, so if you give $1 to the chosen donation, the chosen charity, you'll get a bunch of cool books, some Mega Man stuff, some Jughead stuff, and then with a larger donation, you'll get more and more digital comics. You can head over to Groupies, that's GROUPEES, and search for the Archie bundle there. Seems like a really, really good deal, and all of the money goes to the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, which I can't overstate has done some amazing work. They've been around well over 20 years. They've helped a lot of people with issues of First Amendment rights and civil liberties and things like that. They're a really, really great organization. If you can support them and get a bunch of awesome Archie comics at the same time, it's a win-win situation. There's a ton of news this week. Over at, as we talked about last week, a lot of gossip, a lot of information about the current filming of the CW pilot Riverdale. That great Twitter I talked about last week, at CW Riverdale News, is really keeping their ear to the ground. They've got sort of a blow-by-blow of where the cast is filming each day. So if you're familiar with Vancouver at all, or want to become familiar with Vancouver, you can sort of plot the points of where they're moving to and where they're filming. Still a lot of great information coming out of there. And finally, in news today, as I talked about last week, this week they aired a very special episode of Cake Wars. Cake Wars, plural, I believe, on the Food Network. And I don't know if everyone else is familiar with this show. I'd seen it once or twice before, so the first time I think I watched an entire episode of it. But it is a cake-making competition show. And this particular week, they were making Archie Comics-themed cakes. They had their usual panel of judges, and then one special guest of John Goldwater, co-CEO and publisher of Archie Comics. Obviously, I don't know. I mean, I was excited to see the Archie characters. I thought the cakes that were made and the way that they were represented was pretty authentic, pretty spot on, and pretty reverent. But oh my goodness, do they go out of their way to edit that show in a way that makes it completely unpleasant to watch. I couldn't handle it, you guys. it was like they really made me stress out about things that weren't stressful. They would like show you before the commercial that someone dropped a spoon or something, and then you'd come back thinking that the dropping of the spoon was significant to this degree that was going to just ruin their cake, and it wasn't at all. They would just pick the spoon up and like put it in the sink or whatever. I mean, that wasn't a literal thing that happened, but like they really would. They were so emotionally manipulative in the way that they edited this show that I was just like fretting. I could just feel this tension in my shoulders. It is clearly not the show for me to watch. And I've now watched the one episode that I will maybe ever watch. If you're into Archie Comics and you're into cakes, of course watch this. Seek this out and watch it. I will not be watching more unless maybe they do some more Archie cakes. I'm not sure. But man, yikes, was that an unpleasant experience for me, because I want everybody to have a good time. I want everybody to win. I don't like competition, and I don't like reality TV, so it went very, very poorly for me. But the cakes themselves and the folks involved were fantastic. Great to see discussion of Archie Comics on, a widely televised, presumably popular show. So awesome. There it is. And that's going to wrap up our news this week. C2E2 panel, groupies, cake war, Riverdale news, lots of good stuff going on, lots of things to be excited about in the world of Archie Comics. All right, folks, new releases for this past Wednesday, the 23rd of March. Of course, our book of the week, Betty and Veronica Jumbo Comics Digest number 242. Also out this week, Sonic the Hedgehog number 279. Two separate covers on there, one by Jamal Peppers, one by Rafa Knight. Sonic kind of disappeared for a little while. I feel like the last issue we saw was maybe November, December. I'm not clear on what caused that disappearance. I don't know. I mean, I'm glad it's back. It's a good book. People like it. But it is going to be tricky to see whether this affects the timing of events in the book that are supposed to launch this summer. I assume that the Free Comic Book Day the Free Comic Book Day issue we'll be getting in May will lead into the summer event, as it often does. I don't know whether that summer event is going to be offset. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Coming up this coming Wednesday, the 30th, Archie Comics Double Digest number 267. Also, Jughead number 5. We'll definitely be talking about Jughead next week. I'm really, really thrilled about that series. Also out next week, Sonic Universe. Speaking of Sonic Universe number 83 will be out next week. Looks like no digital releases out this week. If that changes, we'll keep you posted next week. So there they are, your new releases for this past Wednesday, the 23rd, this coming Wednesday, the 30th from Archie Comics. All right, finally, today we're taking a look at the solicitations for June 2016. Comic books are solicited and ordered by comic shops 3 months prior to when they hit the stores, hit the shops, hit the stands, hit your hand so you can read them. So here we are. We get a full list of what's coming up in June of 2016. We're going to run down, hit a few of my particular highlights. You can head over to archiecomics.com and find the full list of June solicitations if you want to check out them. If you want to check them out for yourself. First up, Archie number 9. With the current team of Mark Waid and Veronica Fish. I love the composition of Veronica Fish's cover here. It shows us Archie and Veronica, presumably on a date at a fashion show. Archie has dozed off. The coloring is really sharp. The composition is such that we see the majority of the body of the model walking down the runway. And then sort of just below her knee level, we see the audience with Veronica and Archie dead center. And Archie himself is colored a little bit differently than the rest of the folks, so he really pops in this crowd of folks sort of draped in black. There's a great sense of movement to the model's skirt. I just think overall just a really, really sharp design. I'm very, very fond of that cover. A couple variant covers on that as well that I'm not as excited about, but that is neither here nor there. It was announced this week. Could have mentioned it in the news portion of the show. Thought I'd save it to talk about here. We have a fill-in artist coming in to work with Chip Zdarsky on Jughead for, I believe, 2 issues. It's planned. This is an artist named Derek Charm. Apparently, he's a recent newcomer into the comic scene, maybe a newcomer to sequential art in general. But his stuff looks great. Over on ArchieComics.com, you can see some of his head sketches and stuff of the various characters. I like his style. It's a big departure from Erica's look for sure, which is great. I like that they're having folks who really distinctly have their own voices working on the Jughead book. Really, really good. A bunch of variant covers on that as well. Also, Jughead Volume 1 is going to hit stands in June, comprised of the first 6 issues. Really, really looking forward to that. It'll be interesting to see where the sales are for this. I feel like there are a lot of folks in the world who wait for trades on most things or sometimes specific things. Maybe if you hear something good about Jughead, but you hear about it, when it's a couple issues in, you think, I'll sit back, I'll wait for the trade. Also, the collected edition of the first 5 issues, I believe, of Archie just came out. So that's getting some pretty good reviews across the board. I know Archie has sent out a lot of promotional copies of that in hopes of getting some good buzz, some good press, which I believe is what's happening. So it could be that folks who are reading about and then picking up the Archie book will then go ahead and pick up the Jughead book as well. So it'll be interesting to see. I think that's going to sit together as a really, really nice collection. I'm excited about that. Archie Comics Double Digest number 270 has a brand new story, scripted by Tom DeFalco and drawn by Dan Parent. Cover on that issue by Bill Galvin. Bill Galvin is always welcome in my Archie universe. Love his stuff. Also of note, Archie's Funhouse Summer Annual number 21 features a brand new story written and drawn by Bob Bowling. That is awesome. Anytime Bob Bowling shows up, man, I am there. I love it. The dude's a legend. I don't want to say weird, morbid things, but Bob Bowling's not going to be around forever. He's been giving us great comics since the 1950s. So be sure to pick this up and check out this story and appreciate, a legend in Archie Comics for sure. Cover on that issue by Fernando Ruiz. Archie coming right at you on a slip and slide. Totally rad. Archie and Veronica, what am I saying? Betty and Veronica Summer Annual number 244 has a preposterous water skiing cover. Speaking as I did at the top of the show about sort of anthropomorphizing animals. But Betty's cat Caramel is standing on her hind legs, water skiing with a cape on. So apparently, the rules are out the window. The gloves are off. Dogs and cats are living together. Cats are wearing capes and standing on their hind legs. Why not? Let's do it. I'm all for it. This features a brand new story, scripted and drawn by Dan Parent, with a cover by Dan Parent as well. Betty and Veronica Friends Annual number 249. Again, cover by Dan Parent. Script and art on the lead story on that by Dan Parent. And now we get into the Sonic books. As we talked about a few weeks ago, there's a very special one-shot special edition issue called Sonic Mega Drive. It's a regular 32-page comic book, but it is a special one-shot celebrating the 25th anniversary of Sonic the Hedgehog. Written, as always, by Ian Flynn. He writes all that stuff. He does a great job. He knows what he's doing. We get the trade of Worlds Unite that went down last summer, or at least a portion of it. This collects the first 4 parts. Sonic the Hedgehog number 285 is scheduled for release in June. Although, as we just talked about, Sonic the Hedgehog number 279 just came out this week. So it's going to be an interesting game of catch-up, as I mentioned then. I don't know. We'll wait and see how that shakes out. So that shows that they're about 3 issues behind, 4 issues behind if they're trying to get to 285 by June. Yeah, probably about three issues behind there. We'll see what happens. Sonic Universe number 88 is solicited in June. And finally, World of Archie Jumbo Comics Digest features yet another brand new story written by George Gladier, the late George Gladier, who passed away a couple of years ago. Art on this story by Jeff Schultz, sort of showing you just how much content they have sort of like in the works, in the backlog, just how prolific a writer George Gladier was before his passing. Cover on that issue by Fernando Ruiz. Fantastic. Archie roasting a marshmallow and Jughead roasting many, many marshmallows. So those are my impressions. That's what I'm excited about in the Archie solicitations for June 2016. All right, folks, on the way out today, I want to remind everybody that there are a ton of ways to get in touch with the show. If you want to do so, head over to Facebook. You'll find us facebook.com/Riverdale Podcast, at Riverdale Pod on Twitter, RiverdalePodcast.com, of course. You can also send an email to RiverdalePodcast@yahoo.com. Call and leave a voicemail at any time of the day or night at 573-427-2443. That's 5734-ARCHIE. We update every Saturday morning. You'll find us on Stitcher. You'll find us at RiverdalePodcast.com. You'll find us on iTunes. If you want to help out the show, a great way to help out the show is to write an iTunes review. Another great way to help out the show is to tell your friends. As I said at the top of the show, if you've got pals who are into Archie Comics, tell them about the show. If you want to help out, you can do exactly what Aaron did. Head over to patreon.com/Riverdale Podcast and elect to make a monthly donation to the podcast. That would be awesome. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you guys are getting some time off to spend time with family this weekend, to spend time with friends, to spend time by yourself, if that is your thing. I do hope that you all get some time to relax over this holiday weekend. Solidarity to those who are working this weekend. I'm going to wrap up and get out of here, go have some fun with my family and friends. If you need any more of me in your life, you can head over to about.me/Jonathan Merrifield. You'll find my social media and other podcast work and stuff like that. If you need any more of me in your life, about.me/Jonathan Merrifield. Thank you guys very, very much for joining me again this week. It's been a pleasure. My name is Jonathan, and I'll see you again next week, right here in lovely Riverdale, USA.